Might as well give you a bit of part 2 to the self-sufficient video. Consider a little kitty here. As I've explained, it doesn't cost me much to feed kitty. Actually, the thing that costs most is all these blasted flea treatments and shit. Now, if I went into a shop, first of all, they'd try and sell me kitty for $150. Then they'd want to sell me cat toys. Then they'd want to sell me specialised kitten food. And then, later on, you move over to cat food. But there's just specialised kitten food for kittens under 6 months, and then there's ones for 6 to 9, and then there's, 9 months to 6 months to a year, or I don't know. There's several different types anyway. There's a juvenile one, there's a kitten one, and then there's an adult one, and then there's also a pregnant or lactating cat one. And I'm sure they'd want to hit me up with a real top-notch brand of cat food and the little cat toys. And then they'd give me a grooming brush for kitty, and then they'd hit me up with all these worming treatments and flea treatments. Then they want to sell me a little a pet house, like a little bed for her, and they might even try and sell me one of those ones that's actually a heated pet bed that I've seen for sale. And then they might want to sell me a scratching post. You get what I'm trying to say here? If you ask the shop what we should get, plus the little carry case, the little cage that I can put kitty in to take her travelling, that's got the bottom, that's like a sealed tub on the bottom in case she decides to piss herself with fear as I start doing burnouts in the car. What I'm trying to say is, they would sell you absolutely anything and everything. Oh, and they'd probably sell me pet insurance in case kitty gets sick. I've got insurance to pay out any surgery. They will sell you anything and everything known to bloody man for anything and everything they can, if they can get away with it, and if you're stupid enough to bloody well buy it. And old kitty here gets along pretty good, don't you, bud? With a couple of flea treatments, some real tacky shit bloody cat food, backed up by our own catching of rabbits and mice. And that's it. And she lives quite happily and quite well. In fact, she's actually fat, ain't you? Because you eat too much cat food. I don't sort of pour it out every day. I'll just pour out a big shitload and last them for several days straight. And if you want to live a life like that, where you buy everything you're told to buy, you will sink your ass quicker than concrete boots going to the bottom of the ocean. It's the same with cars. That many people get absolutely butt-raped when it comes to cars. I mean, I don't know if this thing's open. I think it is. But they go on about servicing. Oh, I can't afford to service. So what they do is they don't service the bloody thing. And they run it into the damn ground. Like, basically, they don't change the oil for 5 years. And then they blow an engine, and they turn around and go, well, that car was shit. And they spend thousands of dollars to buy a new car. Whereas they could have kept the car going for a lot longer. You guys ain't going to believe this. This dash is good. There's no gaps between anything. This is a 16-year-old vehicle. More importantly, converted to propane. You can't see the button, but you'll see the gear under the hood. Reminds me I've got to make a video for somebody who asked about showing the gas system on this in detail. I don't mean gasoline, I mean propane. Really speaking, you need to change the oil every 10,000 kilometres. Actually, the Model R, well, the same shape, but the slightly later model of this one, they recommend only every 15,000. Power steering never needs changing. Coolant, well, every couple of years. Transmission, I get that service for about $140, I think it is, every 2 years. Battery will die when it dies. And there's one filter that you need that's down, oh shit knows, down there somewhere. You change that one filter, you get about a gallon of oil, and that'll cost you, oh jack shit, I think the filter's about $12. The oil, depending on what brand you use, can be, oh hell, I think it's as low as $15, maybe $20. I got the really, really good stuff, and it works out about $55. But that's because it's the absolute top of the top. Not that I really need that. But honestly, like to replace the coolant in this, I did actually replace the coolant, and it took about, was it 3/4 of a gallon? Something like that. It was close to a gallon. And the total cost of that was, what was it? I think it was $20, I think, all up. And I've still got, you know, a good heap left to top it up with. This doesn't tend to use any coolant, so that's pretty good. You know, and if you change the oil on these things, that's the original 16-year-old engine, you know. And you got people that just sort of, oh, but I can't afford the $140 service. Yeah, you got to change the plugs on occasion too, and the plug leads are not terribly great with this model. But you know, as I said, $12 filter, $15 to $20 for the oil, and do it yourself instead of pay $140. But they neglect that. They don't worry about that. Oh, I can't be bothered to spend $140 every 6 months, or the what, $32 every 6 months, and do it yourself. Instead, what they'll do is they'll just abuse the shit out of the engine by not changing the oil for 5 years or more, blow the bastard up, and then they've got to spend $5,000 on another car. So let me get this straight. $5,000, that works about $1,000 a year, as opposed to, what do we work out to be, $64 a year in servicing costs. Instead of wait 5 years, your engine blows up and you buy a whole new car for $5,000. $1,000 a year or $64 a year. You know, work it out yourself. It's no bloody wonder these stupid bastards have so much trouble getting along in life, you know. Oh, but I don't know anything about cars. Research. Wikipedia. Google. You want to know about cars? ScottyKilmer.com. Look up Scotty Kilmer on YouTube. Holy smoke, he's got 4-minute videos including everything, including major fixes on bloody hybrid vehicles. No shit. I could barely believe it. About the hybrid vehicles. He's been a mechanic for 46 years. And he shows you how to change fucking clutches and everything. Everything. But no, we don't want to research. We don't want to dig in. We just want to... We're holding on like hell to stay inside that little worldview that everything costs a lot of money. And we got that worldview, and we're going to bloody well prove it to ourselves that a $140 service is a rip-off, which it is, but we could do it for $32, but we don't know how, even though Scotty Kilmer could show us in literally 4 minutes. I could show you in bloody 4 minutes. Hell, I think I almost did. And, you know, change a $140 service into a $32 service. You've got to research. This is the other key. If you buy everything they tell you to in the shop, you'll be stuffed. And people take one look at these shop prices of servicing cars, of what I got to do to get this, to fix that, to do something or other else. Now, I'll admit, there are people out there. I've seen accountants like this. I've known people who, well, one guy, his father had a bloody big carpentry business and used to build houses. And I mean, they'd get in there and in 6 weeks they'd build an entire house completely out of wood. I mean, from the stumps, the whole friggin' lot, right up to the roof, the whole lot. And he was going to take on the family business, and this guy had 20-something employees, and he could not stick a nail into wood to save his bloody life. But he went on to be absolutely brilliant and was the secretary of the president of the land titles office of the state. Brilliant when it come to that. Hopeless with his hands. And I'll admit, some people are hopeless with their hands. As my grandfather, who recently died, said to my mother when my mum married my father, you will save bucket loads of money because your husband is good with his hands. That's what my grandfather said to me mother. And it's all too true, you know. I've seen him fix friggin' tractors. Not that one. It's got some problem with the injector pump and it won't bleed properly. But this is the thing. If you are good with your hands, or you can even do enough research, or even just get a couple of mates who are good with their hands to change the oil in your car, you know, to show you how to do a couple other things. Or even if you just research online that no, kitty cat doesn't need a friggin' spa bath, doesn't need shitloads of different bits and pieces, can live without a heated friggin' bed. You don't need pet insurance. You don't need all this bullshit that they're trying to sell you. You can find out what you do need to buy and what you don't need to buy with a bit of research. YouTube, Google, Wikipedia. Research is really what makes a difference. Ask people's advice, you know. People are happy to give advice on YouTube. Hell, sort of spend half the time bloody doing on YouTube is giving advice, you know. And, well, maybe not half the time, but you know what I'm saying. And this is the thing. Purely researching things, you'll be surprised. Another one that Scotty Kilmer come out with was your car has an engine that shits itself, you know, instead of going, or a door that stuffs up. He shows you how to do these things. It's not that hard to put a door on at all, especially if you don't have much electronics in the car or much electric windows and electric buttons in that door. And even then, it may not be that hard if you can find where the plug is. As he says, go to a Wreckers and you'll find parts shockingly cheap at a Wreckers. And he said, and I didn't actually know this one, some Wreckers will actually put a new engine in your car. Not only will they get an engine out of the same model, they will also install the engine, and the cost of getting a mechanic to do it compared to getting a wrecker who puts engines in cars to put engines in the car, in your car, will be dramatically cheaper than the mechanic, and you will save probably hundreds, if not $1,000 less than the mechanic would charge you to put that engine in the car. Hey, these guys spend the whole day taking engines out of cars. It can't be that hard to put one into it. So they take out your dead engine and put in your quote-unquote new engine, which is actually a second-hand engine. And if you didn't service your car and you burn your engine out after 5 years, hey, there's a second option. Instead of going and buying a whole other car for $5,000, get a wrecker to put in. One that he's ripped out of one of the wreck models he's got. That car actually has a second-hand transmission in it. Same when the alternator blew up when I was at the vineyard. They don't have an ARX now. They always use wrecker parts for that car because they figure it's 16 years old, and how much longer am I really going to drive a car that's only built to last 20 to 25 years at an absolute maximum for anyway? All I'm saying is, don't just do what they tell you to do in the shop. Do your homework, do your research, Google, YouTube, Wikipedia, ask advice, PM people, email people, and learn what you can and can't do, and learn from other people's experiences, and don't buy the shit you don't need to buy. Do the things you do need to do, but work out the cheapest way of going about them. Because the first person you ask to do a job, more often than not, is a guy who wants to charge like a friggin' wounded bull and make you pay a whole shit ton for something that you could have done, or your best mate who's good with his hands could have done, such as change the oil in your vehicle. Now, I'll admit, some things are best left to the professionals. Scotty Kilmer shows how to change a clutch in a vehicle with an east-west engine. I'm so glad that most of our vehicles are north-south engines and they're rear-wheel drive, because they're a lot easier to fix. Now, he made it look very easy changing a clutch on one of those vehicles. The reality is it's very hard. But, there's some things you can do yourself, some things that are best left to the professionals, but so many people get duped into buying so much shit and getting the professionals to do so many things that they could do themselves. Having said that, if you know you're not good with your hands, maybe you're stuck. Or maybe you need to get a good mate who is good with his hands. And that is one of the things that I've focused my life on, is cutting my overhead costs and not getting duped into buying shit that is pointless or I don't need to buy. Often I've also got a habit of, if I'm not sure I'm going to use something a lot, I'll buy the cheap shit Chinese one. If I use the Chinese one to the point that it blows up, and I've still got a little bit more to do, I might buy another Chinese one. If I realise that this is one of these tools that I'm just going to use more and more, and I'm just going to never stop using it. A good example was with chainsaws. I had some cheap shit ones, and then when I moved over here, I realised, hey, I'm going to be using chainsaws a lot now. I've got a wood heater, so I went and got a still, not a shitty one. I got a good one with all the extra accessories and all the tool-free adjustments and all the bullshit. And vibration dampers and the whole friggin' lot. It's been great, Same with weed sprays. I only used to do a little bit of weeds here and there, and the weed problem was really quite big, and then I went through and destroyed about 2 or 3 $10 little weed sprays, and in the end I said, stuff it, you know what? So I got the big backpack one with the battery built in that I can just sit there go and just rain hell down on everything. It's a good one. It's built properly by a professional brand name, not some tacky Chinese one. It's built by Sylvan, which is a very, very well-known brand that's an Italian brand. And that's another thing I do, to try and curb me costs. Buy the cheap Chinese ones until you realise it's something you're going to use on a regular basis, and then go and get an expensive one. But one of the biggest things is, if you can do things the cheap way, but still do the things that need to be done instead of just neglect them altogether, and most of all, work out how to cut your overhead costs, then you're really on a winner. Then you're on the path to being a lot financially freer than you have been before.